meeting of the 25th of March 2025 at 6:31 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I wish to inform you that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The video will appear on the Council's website and YouTube channel. The public gallery will not be recorded unless accidentally, and only a participant in the meeting, namely a person asking questions at public question time, will be live streamed and recorded. If you wish to ask a question at public question time, your voice and image will be recorded and live streamed. If you do not consent to your voice and image being recorded and live streamed to the public, then you will need to leave the meeting. By staying for this meeting, you consent to your voice and image being live streamed and recorded. No other electronic, visual or audio recording device or instrument can be used to record the proceedings of the meeting without prior written permission from the Council, as outlined in the City of Belmont's Standing Orders Local Law 2017, Section 8.17. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge their cultural heritage, belief, connection and relationship with this land which continues today. Councillor Marks, would you please read aloud the affirmation of civic duty and responsibility on behalf of the elected members, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I make this affirmation in good faith and declare I will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of my office for all the people of the City of Belmont according to the best of my judgment and ability. I will observe the City's Code of Conduct and Standing Orders to ensure efficient, effective and orderly decision-making within this forum. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Powell, and I believe Councillor Sakula is running late, but he will be coming. Thank you. Please, no comments. Officers. Mr Murphy, Director of Infrastructure Services, is also an apology. Leave of absence. I note there are no councillors recorded as having a leave of absence for the meeting. Declarations of interest. Will the Coordinator of Governance please advise those declarations made to date?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, there are no declarations of financial interest for this evening.
Any disclosures of interest affecting impartiality?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I have 3 disclosures of interest affecting impartiality. Councillor Jenny Davis, item 12.3, the Internal Audit Report, as she is a member of the Belmont Oasis. Also, Councillor Davis for 12.4, the March Budget Review, as she is a member of the Belmont Oasis. And Mr John Christie for item 14.1, Staff Matter, the Chief Executive Officer Interim Review, as the report details the progress of the CEO's annual goals and targets for the 24-25 year, which the CEO has prepared. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Announcements 4.1. I have one. On Saturday evening, we held our Harmony Festival, celebrating the many cultures that shape our community. Over 4,000 people came together to join in the festivities, and the feedback has been amazing. But the Harmony Festival is more than just music, dance and food. It's about sharing stories, learning from one another and building connections. A huge thank you to the staff, volunteers, performers and stall holders who made this incredible event possible. And of course, thank you to our community for coming together to celebrate. The disclaimer, it is 6:35 p.m. I wish to draw attention to the disclaimer notice contained within the agenda document and advise members of the public that any decisions made at the meeting tonight can be revoked pursuant to the Local Government Act 1995. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing from the City has been received. 4.3. Declarations by members who have not given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers presently before the meeting. Are there any declarations to be made by councillors? There are none. Public question time, 5.1. Responses to questions taken on notice. Responses to questions taken on notice from the ordinary council meeting of the 25th of February are noted in the agenda for Ms Hollands on behalf of Belmont Resident Ratepayers Action Group, Mr Cardoso on behalf of the Belmont East Ward Connect and Ms Ransom. 5.2. Questions by members of the public. It is 6:36 p.m. and I open public question time and draw attention of the public gallery to the rules of public question time, as written in the question time form. Under section 6.3 and section 6.4 of the Standing Orders Local Law 2017, members of the public are reminded they must extend due courtesy and respect to both councillors and employees. Please do not use inappropriate, objectionable or untruthful expressions or expressions that reflect adversely on the character or actions of councillors or employees. If any expression is deemed inappropriate, you'll be directed to withdraw that expression and apologise. If you do not comply, I will have to end your questions. Lastly, remind and caution everyone present at the meeting to refrain from making defamatory statements, especially as the proceedings are now live streamed. Under section 6.2 of the City's Standing Orders, Local Law 2017, members of the public can ask up to 2 questions, and you have a maximum of 2 minutes per question for the questions to be asked and answered. As presiding member tonight, I will allow up to 4 questions per person. Please note that sub-questions, being questions within questions, will be counted towards the total number of questions permitted. The question number and time limit is to allow fair and equal opportunity for everyone to ask their questions before the proceedings continue. At the moment, I have 8 members of the public who have given prior notice to ask questions, these being Lisa Hollins on behalf of Bragg, Bella Scarfenstein, Debbie Ransom, Martin Cardoso on behalf of Belmont East Ward Connect, Jeremy Yaron and Jeff Acton. Anybody else wishes to ask a question? Janet G. Thank you. Please state your name and suburb only. Please ask your questions, noting you have 2 minutes per question for the question to be asked and answered. Lisa Hollins, up first.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors, public gallery. Firstly, I don't give consent to being on camera, and any perceived consent is under duress. Hopefully that might be changed tonight. So, the Bragg questions. We previously asked for a breakdown of what Perth Airport had paid in rates prior to the DFO being built in 2020 and the following years until this financial year. In this time, since we've seen Woolworths, Costco and McDonald's open up for business, for 3 financial years between 2019 and 2021, when they paid $11.47 million in rates, and 2022-3 financial year, they paid $12.5 million, and the increase of that was only $1.09 million over 3 years. And Perth Airport would have still been generating income at that time from those businesses. It was during COVID. So my question, why has Perth Airport not been rated higher during that period when they didn't get very much of an increase? Because they have caused deterioration in our roads around Redcliffe and made a lot more traffic for us. And it seems to me for the last period, in the last couple of years, there's been increases of 1.67 million and 780 million respectively. So for that COVID period, it seems there was virtually very minimal increase, and then all of a sudden quite a big increase. So were they getting some sort of benefit during COVID?
I'll go to the Director of Corporate and Governance. Are you able to answer that today?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's lots of numbers floating around there. Perth Airport are rated like any other ratepayer in the city, even though they're not a ratepayer, as you know. They pay equivalent rates under their lease, which is controlled by the Commonwealth. The Valuer General sets the value for every property within the Perth boundary or Perth Airport boundary, and we apply the same rate in the dollar for every we do as we do for every other commercial and industrial premises in the city. So the figures that we gave you just reflect exactly what the Valuer General has given us, multiplied by the value, the rate in the dollar. Now, I believe, although I wasn't here, Perth Airport did receive a discount during 1 year of the COVID period because they had no income for, I think, the Perth Airport, some of the facilities in the Perth Airport area where there were no passengers. And the council did resolve to grant them a small discount, and I think that was in the order of less than $1 million, but that was only for 1 year, I believe, and then it's always gone back to the normal rate in the dollar that we apply every year to every ratepayer in the district.
So am I correct in saying the airport got a discount for that year, but the residents didn't? Is that pretty much what you're saying?
Mr. CEO wishes to add something to that.
Thank you, Worship. The Director is quite right. It was a concession that was given to Perth Airport, and that was because the rateable areas of the airport were closed because of COVID, completely closed. The international terminal was closed for a period of time because of the locking down of the borders, and they requested some relief as a result of the closure of the businesses in that terminal, and that relief was given to them for that period because of the close. And obviously flights and everything were disrupted, and they resulted in a loss of some $500 million during that period. Thank you, Your Worship.
Next question, please. Thank you.
Well, just on that, did we give that same discount to all the other businesses in Belmont that might have been affected?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. No, we didn't. No other businesses made a request for that, but there was a hardship policy that anyone could have applied for during that period. Thank you, Your Worship.
Question, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
6 of the councillors, including Councillor Harris, who was sworn in to replace Councillor Vijay at the October OCM, along with 5 staff, no children, went to Adachi in January to sign a document to continue the student exchange program at a cost of around $50,000. In previous years, the residents have not been privy to any report as to what the entourage learnt or how it benefited the ratepayers or anything like that. So my question, will we be receiving a report this year? And if not, why not? This is the use of ratepayers' money and there's not any transparency.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you. No, there won't be any report coming. Any delegation that attended complies with council policy in relation to that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Next one.
On 23rd of November, Bragg wrote to the Mayor and councillors about legal representation policy. We outlined that the Supreme Court had just made a decision that may potentially have affected the operation of this policy, and we asked if you'd get legal advice. I asked at the November council meeting if you were intended to, and what's in the minutes has been poorly reported. I think it's in tonight's. It says, it just said, I asked if council intended to get legal advice with no context. The response, however, had said that the city got the legal representation policy was reviewed by the city solicitors prior to the policy being adopted with council, and that didn't answer my question. My question was pretty clear. You'd put the policy in place, the Supreme Court decision came in, and I asked if you were going to get legal advice.
Director of Corporate Governance?
I recall the question from November, and I think if I recall, my response was no, we weren't going to get legal advice, and that position remains.
It's not reflected in the minutes, that's why I've asked.
Thank you.
Okay, now my personal questions.
Thank you.
In December, when we asked how the words directly affected were interpreted by you, Mr. Mayor, in the absence of a definition, the response was both words in the expression have plain meaning. Assistance can be obtained by reference to dictionary definitions. At the last council meeting, you read out a whole new set of rules on this word, which virtually renders everyone as not being directly affected by anything. Residents are stakeholders who pay rates, but according to the Mayor, we are not directly affected by any item which requires funding by our rates. Any public submissions, we are told, are not seen in the entirety when it goes open for public comment. By the councillors, they see excerpts of it and a little comment in the side by the officers. And in my opinion, the standing orders are not followed properly either, which I'm happy to explain all my reasons for that if need be. So my question, if residents are not directly affected by any item that requires funding and therefore unable to give their opinion in a submission at an agenda briefing because the Mayor has made his decision that they're not directly affected, which results in the rest of the council not being able to hear the submission either, how does this comply with the Local Government Act for transparency, and how is censoring the community fair to them when they are at a disadvantage when only the officers' opinions are being heard by council by the way of the report and the rates are paid by the residents, which funds the items that come before council?
Hand over to the CEO. I deny that. That's true. You can email, you can ring. There's lots of ways that you can make your position available to us. So I don't believe that's true. Over to the CEO.
Thank you, Worship. You actually responded to Ms Hollands yesterday on this very matter in quite a detailed piece of correspondence. And I think Ms Holland should refer to the correspondence dated the 24th of March. Our position remains unchanged, and as far as we are concerned, the matter is closed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Question, please.
There's been plans talked about to move Belmont Oasis to 400 Abernethy Road, no doubt at a cost of squillions to the ratepayer. In addition to them getting rent probably for a very discounted price, the ratepayer funds the gym equipment, and for the last couple of years that's been around a couple of $100,000 or more. Meanwhile, the membership costs are quite significant in comparison to other gyms in Belmont, and it's becoming unaffordable to a lot of our seniors. So my question, apart from any maintenance on the pool, for example, fixing leaks, who pays for the day-to-day maintenance of the pool, such as chlorine? And if the city's paying, can I have a costing for the last 12 months for pool maintenance, in addition to a costing to the rest of the Oasis, such as gym equipment and any other spending that's not related to building maintenance, please?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'll need to take that question on notice.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, at the start of the meeting, Mayor, you read out about public question time, and you say that the rules of public question time are on the back of the public question time form. And I'd like to know why you're telling people that those are the public question time rules when they're not the standing orders.
They are the rules, and if I look at standing orders, which I haven't got the time to go through, which I'm sure I reported to you last year, it refers that we are to create something that we run with. So it is all correct.
Well, that's your opinion, Mayor. I simply asked, where does it say that in the standing orders?
I'm sure I've already sent this to you.
Well, I've checked and I can't find anything. If you could tell me specifically where, that'd be great.
We'll now stop the meeting to look through the Local Government Act.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, can I ask Ms Hollands if she can repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the standing orders are the rules according to the local government as far as what meeting rules are. And we keep hearing, and the Mayor does it at the start of every meeting, he refers to the rules on the back of public question time form. There's no reference in the standing orders to those particular rules. And so I'd like to know why you're referring to rules that in essence are not, you know, part of the meeting rules. Because there's a whole lot more of them that keep getting added to.
Your Worship, rather than trawl through the standing orders and the Local Government Act, we'll take that question on notice.
Okay. I would have thought you would have been able to answer that since you're controlling the meeting, however.
I take umbrage with that. That's not right to say that. I ask you to withdraw that, please. I'm asking you to withdraw that comment.
Since we have one leader, yes, I suppose I'll have to.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Over to Bella Scarfenstein.
Yes, good evening, officers and councillors. I refer to item 12.1.1 in today's agenda and the table on page 33. The following strategies endorsed by council have been prepared to support the local planning strategy, yet these strategies do not form part of the local planning strategy and have not been endorsed by the Australian Planning Commission. I find this a little bit contradictory. So could you please clarify the extent to which these strategies support the local planning strategy, yet at the same time do not form part of the local planning strategy?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what the statement refers to is that those sub-strategies are not statutory components to be endorsed by the WAPC. The statutory component is the local planning strategy. Those sub-strategies are parts of work that go into the local planning strategy to inform all the various components of that strategy.
Next question, please.
So if these sub-strategies do not form, and I'm not sure if Wilmot answered the question or not because I couldn't quite hear him, do not form part of the local planning strategy, does this mean they potentially have little or no bearing on the city's local planning strategy or the Belmont local planning scheme?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, they do inform the local planning strategy, but they're not statutory components that are endorsed or approved by WAPC. But definitely in the documents, it's quite clear where the links are between the sub-strategies and the local planning strategy.
Okay.
Next question.
With reference to the link, environment and sustainability strategy plans and strategies, can you advise why the Belmont Foreshore Precinct Plan and the Urban Forest Strategy Canopy plans have been removed from the plans and strategies page on the city's website?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, I believe those strategies are being reviewed, but I'll take the question on notice.
Can you please advise when the review would be complete?
Director of Development and Communities.
I'll have to take that question on notice, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my last question is, how can the City of Belmont ensure these important environmental sub-strategies do form part of the local planning strategy and local planning scheme are also endorsed by the WAPC DPLH?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, the local planning strategy clearly references these sub-strategies, and whatever is written into the local planning strategy will be endorsed or will hopefully be endorsed by WAPC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oops. Debbie Ransom.
Thank you. I don't agree with having my image recorded. Debbie Ransom, Ascot. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff and public. I have been following the Ascot Racecourse Stabling Complex project that recently went to the DAP. Fees for attending the DAP range, I think, between $5,000 and $17,000 and are based on the value of the project. Can council tell me who pays that fee? Is that council or the developer?
Director of Development and Community.
Through the chair, the developer pays that fee.
Thank you.
Next question.
I've also had a look at the design review panel, which provides independent expert advice on significant development proposals and major projects. Can you provide some examples of who would be an expert advice? What sort of company it would be? Is it, an architect, another town planner?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, the city appoints a panel of experts ranging from architects to landscape and urban designers to traffic engineers and people with various qualifications and expertise in the design review realm.
Thank you. Can you tell us who pays for that expert advice? Is that council or the developer?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, that's paid for through the city's operational budget.
Thank you. Final one, can the council provide an example of the costs incurred to ratepayers for a small, medium and large development?
Director of Development Communities, can you answer that today or take it on notice?
Through the chair, I'll take the question on notice.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
We move on to Martin Cardoso for his questions for himself first.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, city officers and members of the gallery. I have 3 questions, including preamble, all are timed at less than a minute and a half each. Question 1, this question pertains to decision-making importance. The Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries state that council forums play an important role in the decision-making process. Given that discussions at agenda briefing forums where elected members receive information from city officers, ask questions and debate issues that often shape the decisions made at ordinary council meetings, how does the city rank the importance of agenda briefing forums in this process? And would the city agree that agenda briefing forums are a critical stage in decision making?
CEO.
Thank you, Worship. As we've mentioned previously, there is actually no requirement under the Act to have agenda briefing forums. However, the Council has had these meetings for a number of years because we believe they are an important part of that decision-making process, which allows elected members an opportunity to be briefed on agenda items. It's an opportunity for them to ask questions on those agenda items and to seek clarification before this meeting a week later to make an informed decision. So while there is no requirement for agenda briefing forums, I believe this is a critical part, and to answer your question, they are very important, I believe, for elected members to make informed decisions. Thank you, Your Worship.
Next question, please. Thank you.
Question 2. This question pertains to inconsistent recording of denials. At the agenda briefing forums in October 2024 and on February 2025, 2 different residents were denied the opportunity to make a submission on the basis of not being directly affected. However, these denials were not recorded in the published ABF matrix, the ABF minutes, or the OCM minutes. There is precedent for some submission denials being documented in past ABF matrices, yet the practice appears inconsistent. Could the city clarify why some submission denials are recorded while others are not? What criteria determine whether a denial is documented, and how it ensures transparency in these decisions if the process is not consistently applied?
Director of Corporate and Governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Contrary to Mr Cardozo's comments, we do actually record in the minutes of the ABF when a person has had a submission or deputation denied. I think we name the party and the reason why, but I think we could probably do better. It's certainly in the item, and I've had a look myself, and it's certainly there. And if I recall, I think it covers the November, December, February council meetings. It is recorded in the minutes of the matrix. But we are looking at how we may best describe it, because it's within the body of the item before council. It could not be as clear as possible, but it certainly is in the minutes and it is noted correctly.
Thank you,
Next
sir.
question, thank you.
Yep. Can I just side question? At the October ABF, Mr Harris came and asked a question. I was here, and that's not recorded. So if you could just check the October 2024, that's all I ask, and the February 2025 where Ms Hollins was also denied.
Mr. CEO wants to add something.
Yeah, I'll just want a point of clarification, Mr Cardozo. You said that Mr Harris attended an agenda briefing forum and asked questions. There is no
Made a
public
submission.
question. There's no public question time at agenda
Sorry, I
briefing.
meant submission rather.
Okay, thank
Apologies.
Next question.
Question 3. This question seeks to understand why the community cannot have live streaming of ABFs. The CEO recently stated that council has no appetite to live stream agenda briefing forums. While the city is not required to hold these forums publicly, it actively chooses to do so. Given that 8 surrounding local governments already live streaming their forums, and considering the clear benefits of transparency and community engagement, the community wants to know why council is unwilling to take this additional step to improve accessibility, and what specific concerns or objections prevent council from supporting live streaming. The community simply wants to understand that council don't need to, but we simply want to know why there is no appetite or want to live stream these forums.
Mr. CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. As Mr Cardozo will be aware, there is an item on tonight's agenda from the electors' meeting to deal with this issue, and I'm sure councillors will consider it then. Although there may be a number of local governments who do, there are also a number of local governments who don't even hold agenda briefing forums, and there are those that do, and they're not open to the public. But I'm sure council will make some consideration later this evening. Thank you, Your Worship.
Fantastic. This that's the end of
Yes.
my personal questions.
Go ahead.
Martin Cardozo on behalf of the Belmont East Ward Connect. 3 questions, including preamble, all timed at less than 2 minutes each. This question follows on. This question pertains to the selective use of benchmarking. At the December 2024 Ordinary Council meeting, the City justified increasing the CEO's delegation to accept tenders for capital projects to $500,000 by benchmarking against a broad range of local governments across Western Australia. However, when electors presented benchmarking at the February 2024 annual electors meeting, focusing specifically on 8 adjoining local governments to support live streaming agenda forums, the City dismissed benchmarking as an insufficient basis for change. Given that Council is set to vote on this community-backed live streaming motion tonight, can the City clarify its criteria for when benchmarking is considered a valid justification for policy decisions, and why benchmarking was used to support the delegation increase but rejected when electors applied a relevant comparison to advocate for greater transparency?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess it's a difficult one to answer as a result of the benchmarking and the extent of benchmarking with 8 surrounding. As you know, we are a Band 1 council and will often benchmark against other like councils such as Joondalup, Wanneroo, City of Stirling, Melville, Coburn and the likes. So it's not just as simple as the ones bordering us, but what I might do is take that on notice and provide a bit more detail from Mr Cardozo. Thank you, Your Worship.
Second question, please. Thank
Question 2. Belmont has a plan for accessibility and live streaming for inclusion. We just need to trigger it. The City of Belmont's Access and Inclusion Plan 2022 to 2026 commits to ensuring that people with disabilities can access information in digital formats, that's outcome 3, and have equal opportunities to participate in public consultation, that's outcome 6. The Disabilities Act 1993 WA also requires local governments to remove barriers to access. While the City is not required to open agenda briefing forums to the public, it chooses to do so, recognising their value in community engagement. However, for elderly residents and those with mobility impairments, sensory disabilities or chronic illness, attending in person can be difficult or almost impossible. This is not about physical access to lifts and ramps. It's about ensuring full participation in public civic discussions. Tonight, Council will decide whether to support live streaming agenda briefing forums. Given that the City already live streams ordinary Council meetings, will Council take this opportunity to ensure that residents, including seniors and people with disabilities, have equal access to the decision-making process? If not, how does it justify maintaining a barrier that excludes some of the most vulnerable members of our community?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't believe we do have any barriers for people with disabilities being able to access this council or this local government. Your reference is to but one aspect of that. I believe that our disability access and inclusion plan and all of the things we do to accommodate people with disabilities is being met. But as you say, Council will make a determination on this later this evening when we get to that item. Thank you,
Right,
Worship.
thank you. My last question. This question pertains to why submission or deputation referrals have never progressed to Council. Standing Order 6.72 provides two pathways for determining whether a person may make a submission. One of the pathways is that the CEO may approve the request or may refer it to Council for a decision. This structure creates a reasonable expectation. In some cases, the matter would be referred to Council rather than determined solely by the administration or by the presiding member on every occasion. Despite this, it appears that in the past 8 years, no requests have been referred to Council for a decision, no referral for Council to play their role in the directly affected decision. Can the CEO please provide specific examples or circumstances under which a request would be referred to Council rather than being determined solely by the administration or presiding member? If no such examples exist, does this mean that in practice, referral to Council is never considered an option?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'll take that on notice just to give that a bit more thought so I can provide a reasonable response to Mr Cardozo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to Jeremy Yaron.
Kaya, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mayor. First question is, as a member of the City of Belmont, I've engaged with various members of the community, and there's a growing concerns around homelessness. It's the visibility of that in this city, and the people that I've spoken with at a grassroots level, they want to know what is the city doing about the growing concerns around homelessness.
Get your response. Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, the city's officers have a network and coordinate with the state government agencies and other support agencies to assist and connect rough sleepers or people experiencing homelessness with the appropriate support services.
Next question.
Second question is, I've spoken to quite a few Indigenous people in the community as well around employment opportunities here at the city, and they just want to know what is the city doing in terms of its Indigenous employment strategies.
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the chair, I'll take that question on notice.
We're taking on notice and writing to you, okay? To give you a more informed explanation, okay?
Yep.
Thank
no
you so
worries.
much.
I've got another question.
Okay.
Also, too, is the city going to engage with the local members of parliament via either state or fed around looking at being creative around trying to lobby for various Indigenous programs within the city?
We meet with the local member regularly, but I'll hand over to the CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I was going to say that we have regular contact with the member for Belmont and the member for Swan, and where there are opportunities, and certainly where they have funding opportunities, we pursue those. But as the Mayor says, we meet regularly with those members of Parliament, and we try to encourage them to assist us with this regard. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yep, no worries.
Thank you so much. We'll need to extend question time. And a mover, moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Harris. We'll need to vote. Please use the buttons on your screen. Councillor Ryan. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We move on to Jeff Acton. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors, and I'll be very quick. I refer to the Redcliffe area traffic study that was released recently, and in relation to section 5.1.1, to do with the proposed changes to Lyle Street, the bottom of Lyle Street, of Stanton Street. So my first question is regarding the trial period. It wasn't stated in the report, and if I could just have feedback about that.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, that's a recommendation within the report for a temporary left in, left out, but that obviously will still be subject to the community consultation period that's gone out. So once we have concluded that consultation and then consider the feedback from the community, our report will come to council, and then council will ultimately make a determination on to what actions within that report they believe should be implemented. So it's not possible to give you a time frame at this point in time. Thank you, Your Worship.
And my final question is relating to some of the figures in that report, and I relate to the vehicle per hour movement of Stanton into, what the proposal is. Basically, if I highlighted the vehicle movement out at the peak period, the PM time period, there's a reduction in Lyle Street of 81%, but an increase in Mooring Street of 89%. And does that make sense, or can that be justified?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Worship. Well, those stats that are within the study report would have been taken from traffic count data that would have been installed traffic counters on all of those roads. So I would suggest that the traffic count data would be accurate at the time when they were writing the report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay,
Thank you so much, sir. Janet G?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and residents here. Before I start my questions, I'd like to ask, at February's meeting, I asked questions that weren't taken on notice, but they're not recorded anywhere in here. I've looked back to front in this report, and normally questions from the last meeting are written up in here, but they're not. Can I ask where they are?
Director of Corporate Governance, are you able to clarify, or would you like to get back to her?
Look, I'm reminded if they're answered on the night, they'll be actually in the minutes. So I'm happy to take that question on notice and give Ms G a response.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. Can I ask, what is the cost for holding an annual electors meeting? And what is the benefit to councillors, and in particular to residents, when no residents' motion has ever been supported?
Thank you, Worship. I'll need to take that question on notice. Obviously, I'm not sure what the total cost associated with an electors meeting is, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, next one, please. Thank you.
How much has been spent on meals for councillors in the last 12 months? And what was the cost for the 12 months following the return to a full schedule of council meetings after COVID? So I'd like the last 12 months and the 12 months from when they went back after COVID, please.
Director of Corporate and Governance, take that on notice.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to take that question on notice.
Next question.
Next question is, why are councillors chasing super? You are not employed, you are elected members. Are councillors aware that they can put money in from their council payments into super and reduce any tax paid on your council payments?
First of all, I think it's the state government that says that we are to have super. But over to the CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Part of me feels that the first part of that question should be ruled out of order. The councillors are not chasing superannuation. As the Mayor says, this is a result of amendments to the Act by the state government, which entitles elected members to receive superannuation for the role that they play. Thank you, Your Worship.
Next question, please.
All right, next question. At the last OCM, when I brought up the 4.3 metre gap between the bollards on the corner of Gabriel and Abernethy, the CEO made a last comment that my interest was purely because it was my property. I've consistently brought up the safety of pedestrians, and I take offence at the CEO's comment. Therefore, I will ask, will the CEO apologise for his uncalled comment at the last meeting?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. If I offended Ms G, I do apologise, but I do not recall making that statement that Ms G has stated. I merely stated that, if I recall, your concern was the spacing of the bollards and a car could fit between them. And I'd said to you that as a result of the modifications that had been taken place with the closure of that median strip, most of the accidents at that intersection were caused by right turn movements. And what I think I said was that intersection is now significantly safer as a result of the removal of those right turn movements, and the properties that have been impacted are certainly safer today than I believe they were before that traffic treatment was put in place. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. That's not what I remember.
Thank you. There being no more questions, I close public question time at 7:17 p.m. (6.1) Matrix for the Agenda Briefing Forum held the 18th of March. May I have a mover and seconder to receive and note the matrix? Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Carried unanimously. Thank you. (6.2) Ordinary Council meeting held on the 25th of February. Are there any questions on the minutes, noting that the version of the minutes we're approving is the most recent version uploaded? First of all, are there any questions on these minutes? I need a mover. Councillor Kujitsky, seconded by Councillor Harris. Voting is now open. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Questions by members of which due notice has been given? There are none. Questions by members without notice. Response to questions taken on notice? There are none. Question by members without notice. Councillor Harris.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question regarding the agenda briefing streaming issue discussed in the electors meeting item. I submitted a notice of motion on this matter in November last year, which was deferred to an information forum under 5.3 Rule 4 of our standing orders. When will that IF on streaming be held so that Council can be informed on and consider options on this issue?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. My understanding is that's scheduled for the information forum on the 7th of April. Your Worship, thank you.
Thank you very much. 9, is there any new business of urgent nature? There is none. Business adjourned from the previous meeting? There's none. Reports of committees. Are there any questions on the minutes of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk held on the 17th of February 2025? There's none. And may I have a mover and seconder that the minutes of the Standing Committee Audit and Risk held on the 17th of February be received and noted? Moved by Councillor Sakula, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone. Carried unanimously. 11.2, Executive Committee held on 24th of February of this year. Are there any questions on the minutes? May I have a move and second that the minutes of the Executive Committee held on the 24th of February 2025 be received and noted? Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Kulchitsky. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Voting is now closed. Carried unanimously. Reports of administration. Withdrawn items. I'll go through each one. 12.1, Councillor Kulczycki. 12.2, Community Sporting and Facilities Fund Grant Application. 12.3, Internal Audit Report. 12.4, March Budget Review. 12.5, Annual Electors Meeting. 12.6, Payment of superannuation for the elected members. Councillor Harris. 12.7, 2025 Ordinary Local Government Election, Appointment of WA Electoral Commissioner. No. 12.8, Accounts for Payment for February. 12.9, Monthly Financial Report for February. So, I have 12.1, 12.6, I have a mover and seconder to adopt the balance of the report en bloc by an absolute majority decision, with the exception of items 12.1, 12.6. I've not missed anything out? No. Moved by Councillor Sakula, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Councillor Davis, have I missed something? Councillor Davis, have I missed something? No? Okay. So we've got a move and seconder. Voting is now open, using the buttons on your microphone screen. Voting is now closed, carried unanimously. We now move to 12.1. Councillor Kulczycki. Need a seconder. Councillor Sessions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm moving an amended motion than what is published in the original agenda, which is presented on our screens now, and that amendment relates to part 1 of the officer recommendation, and it states the following. For us to endorse the draft local planning strategy and draft local housing strategy subject to inclusion of an additional action item to investigate the preparation of a precinct structure plan for the land in Rivervale bound by Brighton Road, Great Eastern Highway, the boundary projecting northwest from Acton Avenue and the Swan River. The plan shall aim to facilitate medium to high density residential development that upholds exemplary environmental sustainability and construction standards. And the reasons for this amendment include the following. So investigation of a precinct structure plan provides a strategically led approach to influence building outcomes that promote medium to high density development, aligning with the objectives of the state government, Perth and Peel at 3.5 million framework, which aims to accommodate a population of 3.5 million by 2050 through sustainable urban development growth. This initiative complements existing developments, such as the Spring Structure Plan, ensuring cohesive and integrated urban growth within the precinct. Investigation of a precinct structure plan would promote and envisage the following benefits. It further clarifies the vision for the area, complementing Council's endorsed Great Eastern Highway corridor strategy and enhancing the area's development framework. Existing landholders may be encouraged to consolidate land holdings to achieve favourable building outcomes or release holdings to the free market for redevelopment, thereby facilitating urban renewal and investment. Precinct structure plan would promote environmentally sustainable development, drawing from principles outlined in the endorsed Golden Gateway Structure Plan. This includes integrated water management, urban forest enhancement, sustainable transport and connectivity considerations, and sound environmental management. The plan would promote that environmental sustainability within building design, features and technology. This includes prioritising energy efficiency, climate responsive architecture and integration of renewable energy solutions and regard for water sensitive urban design principles. By adopting these measures, the plan aligns with contemporary best practice in sustainable development and enhances the area's long-term resilience to climate change.
Very much. Move to the seconder.
Thanks, Mayor Rossi. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for the enormous amount of work that's gone into this strategy. And the addition of the precinct structure plan investigation by Councillor Kulczycki is really important, well thought out and necessary.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Marx.
Just that I have a foreshadowed motion for this, Mr Mayor. I don't know whether the mover of the motion is willing to take the foreshadowed motion on board or not.
Councillor Kulczycki.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I've perused the foreshadowed motion and consider it should be included in this motion for consideration.
Thank you. So, Councillor Marx, have you sent this in so we can put it on the screen?
No, I haven't, but I have the motion here.
Okay, it will need to be given to our officer to type it up. Is that it there? Oh, we have got it. Okay, I thought you said you didn't get it. Okay, thank you. So it's in front of us, point 5. Would you like to go through it and explain it to us?
Yes, this is a question was asked at the forum on last Tuesday about the residential stable area and about the Section 70A notification on titles of lots in the area. There was a statement put forward by the officers, and I have changed it slightly, but basically it's the same thing. And it reads this: the use of this lot may be affected by equine-related activities conducted on surrounding land, including but not limited to the Ascot Racecourse. These equine uses may be expected to generate reasonable noise, dust, odours and other impacts associated with the racing industry, which operates from 4 a.m. in the morning on most mornings of the week. It is noted that this is a designated stable area. That was part A. Part B was investigate the use of information in the property settlement questionnaire to inform buyers of equine activities at the stage of due diligence of property transfers prior to buying a property in the residential and stable areas. This was also put forward by the officers. The third point that I'd like to put forward is that I think that exactly what's meant by reasonable noise is what the important thing is here. And I think we need some legal advice to tell us what reasonable noise is, considering the horsing industry stretches back more than 100 years in the same place, the city of Belmont, and noting that this is the second biggest industry in Belmont. The question is, there has always been a noise, a reasonable noise put up. Exactly what is accepted? Is it accepted that the residential and stable areas can work from 4 o'clock in the morning onwards, or is it not accepted? I'm just interested, or we should all be interested in what the situation is on a legal basis as to whether we can accept the reasonable noise proposal, or is it just unacceptable and the racing industry and the residential and stable area is in trouble? So the reason given is that racing is the largest long-term industry in Belmont. Its survival depends on it being able to use its designated area without hindrance from the residential areas which are close to it or residents living within it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Before I move to anybody else to speak, I'll just ask the Director of Development and Communities if there are any issues with this inclusion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the inclusion can be contemplated by council to the extent that it is to investigate the inclusion rather than to include it. So I'm happy to facilitate the decision that council wishes to proceed with.
Because it has the word investigate, you're happy with that. Terrific. Councillor Sakula, you've got a question apparently?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just following on what the Director has said, just in terms of investigation. So, as a form of line of inquiry here, does this preclude, with the passage of time, of any future review of zoning and possible development in that area?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just trying to digest the question. Would Councillor Sekula be able to repeat that, please?
Please repeat it, Councillor.
To yourself? To the Director?
Yes, through me.
Through you.
But just repeat it, please. Thank you.
To the Director. So as a form of line of inquiry following on what you've just mentioned about investigating, with the passage of time and the change that can occur in a certain area, does such an inclusion prevent any change of zoning, in the years to come, or any possibility of a development with the passage of time?
Director of Development and Communities.
Through the Chair, I think that's a matter that would be uncovered by the investigation. So when the officers, if it is included in a councillor's motion and included in the strategy ultimately, then in investigating it before the scheme provisions are written, all that will become clear.
Yes, because remember, this is not the final step. Right, thank you. Any other further questions? Councillor Sekula? No? No? Good. Anybody else wish to speak on this, on 12.1? Councillor Davis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just keep it short and brief, but this strategy is the future, the vision of Belmont planning, and particularly like that it outlines dwelling diversity, because we really need it, because the environment of the Belmont has changed. Even when I go door knocking with, you know, when we have elections and things like that, there's so many more single people without families. It's just not the two kids and the families so much anymore. So we definitely need a lot more diversity with our planning. So I think that's really great. And also the environment and sustainability outlined in this item. I think it's a great vision of the City of Belmont, and it's a massive document. I think it took me about, I don't know, a couple of days to get through. So yeah, it's a lot of work's gone into this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak on this? No, then I'll speak briefly. I also support Councillor Marks' addition to investigate the possibilities in point 5A(b) and also get legal advice. I believe protecting the stables area is essential. Anyone moving into that area should do so fully aware of what to expect. They shouldn't wake up one day and start to complain. That's why I support the property settlement questionnaire and notification of the title, to investigate the options of putting this in and the feasibility. Ensuring new residents are informed from the start is important. Further to that, any financial aspect is irrelevant to the planning process. That's one of the things we're taught very early on as councillors. Generally looking at this strategy and this plan, I wish to express my concern that there's a belief that we'll need to adhere to the higher codes for this, with the zones with two codes. As a council, we've successfully provided infill development. Residents and the government have asked for a variety of housing options, and we've successfully provided that. I understand that we're close to the city, but moving to a higher code doesn't make sense to me. Personally, I believe the WAPC is missing the point. The approach is based on outdated thinking. 20 years ago, every office worker would commute into the city, but that's no longer the case. Government departments like Landgate have moved to outer parts of the metropolitan area, like Landgate is now based in Midland. Additionally, COVID has created more opportunities for working from home, further changing the landscape. But I will await feedback from the residents before making my final decision on the matter. Thank you. Over to the mover, if there's nobody else.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To sum up, I commend Councillor Marks on putting forward this additional amendment. It is thorough and reflects that Belmont is the home of horse racing in Western Australia and is a sensible addition to this important process. The original part of the motion speaks to a strategic direction, which has been very well addressed in other parts of Belmont in the officer's report, and I trust that this addition provides an opportunity for us to revitalise this part of Belmont that requires extra attention. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for summing so well up. I wish to stop at this moment and just raise that the director believes we may need to tweak the motion that's up there to just call an adjournment to amend the wording to ensure it's appropriate and meets the planning requirements. So we've got to make sure when it goes back to WAPC, it meets the planning requirements. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Davis. Please use the button on your screen. Councillor Marx, Councillor Sakula. One more. Carry unanimously. We just take a short adjournment while the wording gets checked before we do a final vote. Thank you. We are now ready. We need a mover and a seconder to reopen the meeting. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Kujitsky. Please use the buttons on your screen. Carried unanimously. We just get the wording up on the screen. So, Councillor Marx, I need you to check to see that's what you intend, and then I need to get the mover and seconder to agree that they're happy with adding this. So first to Councillor Marx, while the other two are reading it. Of course, we can all be reading at the same time, but I need all three to approve before we go for a vote. You're happy? Can I go to the mover and seconder? Are you happy with how it's written? The seconder's happy, just waiting for the mover. Just give a chance for Councillor Kujitsky to read it all.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
In relation to the reasons, have we included an additional dot point to address why we're adding this amendment?
Do you have a reason?
Yep, it's on.
I thought, oh, there we are, scrolling down.
It reads, racing is the largest long-term industry in Belmont. Its survival depends on it being able to use its designated area without hindrance from the residential areas which are close to it or residents living within it.
It's actually on the screen, just that maybe we couldn't see it. So thank you for that. Councillor Kujitsky, are you happy with that?
Yep.
No, Councillor Kujitsky?
Yes, Councillor.
Yes, I'm just waiting for it to be presented on the screen. As it's important that we...
You're going the wrong way.
It's definitely on it.
Do you need the screen to be moved up or down?
So, yes, I'm happy with the motion that's presented here.
Yes.
And I just want to confirm that the reasons that I've provided and the reason that Councillor Marx has provided is included in this motion that we're considering tonight.
Will we please move down to the reasoning, please? Thank you. If you just give the officer some time to do that. Shows the value of sending in your alternative motions in early. Give Councillor Kujitsky time to read the reasoning.
Yes, and if we scroll down, please. Yes, that dot point's been included. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm satisfied with the motion that we're now presented with.
Thank you very much. Seconder, just to reconfirm, you've read the reasoning is fine. Councillor Marx, you're happy with the reasoning? All happy? Any further questions on this before we vote? No? We'll now go to a vote. You've already spoken on this. We just corrected some wording, adjusted some wording. Voting is now open. Use the buttons on your screen. Carried unanimously. Thank you everyone for your patience. We now move to 12.6. Payment of superannuation for elected members. We're going to move by Councillor Harris. I need a seconder. Councillor Sessions. Over to you, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Rossi. So the alternative that I've submitted reads that Council approves the payment of superannuation to elected members from 19 October 2025 as per Regulation 32A1 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996 as amended. Do I need to read the reasons or should I give... Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Reasons being that while the commitment required of elected members should be fairly compensated and superannuation is part of fair compensation, at the same time, the position of elected members as custodians of a public rates funded budget demands a stronger justification to add this benefit before it is statutorily necessary. Legislative changes providing superannuation to elected members do not require us to take on immediately and provide the option of offering super from the local government elections and they do provide that option in October 2025. I believe it would be more prudent to adopt the payment of superannuation from 19 October 2025 rather than February 2025. And the attraction and retention of quality council candidates in future elections will not be affected by changing the start date from February to October. Those successful in the October elections will have guaranteed super as part of their council term, no matter council's decision on this item. So just to expand on that, the state government does now allow us to provide super to elected members if we so choose. We have options for a short time. It will be compulsory in October, but it is discretionary up until that point. And once the local elections happen in October, councillors can get super. Full stop. Our call tonight doesn't affect that at all. But tonight's decision is only about the grey area between now and then. What do we do before it is compulsory? Because right now is different. We're not yet forced to offer super. And so we, as the people responsible for the budget, have to make that choice. Do we vote to give ourselves a discretionary benefit additional to what we signed up for at the start of our terms? Do we wait for the state mandated changeover to this provision in October? And does it benefit the community as a whole to start this now instead of October? This is a tough call. Being a councillor is currently my main income, low though it is. This is a relatively minor part of the budget, and thanks to sound financial management by the city, we are in a position to absorb the cost. But as council, our position of responsibility over a public rates funded budget means that we need to justify and deeply consider any benefit that could go our way. The call tonight is only between now and October, or in between. Bringing super in now is discretionary. And just because we can does not necessarily mean that we should. I don't think the choice to provide this benefit immediately is sufficiently justified, so I'm proposing that we take option 3 as laid out in the officer's report, and that is to begin offering super in October following the local government elections. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor.
Seconder, wish to speak on this?
Thanks, Mayor Rossi. I second this motion as I believe if a councillor has put the effort into an alternative motion that they should have the democratic right to be heard. However, I do not support it. Councillors should have been paid super many years ago. Employees, state and federal elected members all get paid super. Superannuation for councillors aligns us with the broader workforce. The role is time-consuming and requires a lot of dedication, and if we want to attract greater participation in council, then I believe this can encourage it somewhat. We want to encourage diversity within our council. Our decisions affect the whole community, so we want the whole community represented, and appropriate remuneration can assist with that. From July this year, women on paid parental leave will be paid super by the government. That's a huge win for mums who typically have significantly less super than men. The introduction of superannuation for elected members improves fairness, equity and sustainability, particularly for women choosing to work for their community. The recommendation is to introduce it from February 2025, which is when the legislation was introduced, rather than October 2025, which is when it becomes compulsory. But we also chose to introduce live streaming a year before it was compulsory too, because we believed in it and felt that it was important. I also believe this is important. This is not about taking money from ratepayers. Most residents I've spoken to are shocked that councillors don't already receive superannuation. I value this role highly and believe superannuation is necessary and a positive move.
Thank you very much. Could you turn off your microphone, Councillor Harris? Thank you so much. Anybody else wishes to speak for or against? Councillor Sakula.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to thank my fellow councillor for tabling this alternate motion on the payment of superannuation to councillors. It's correct to point out that councillors should be fairly remunerated for the considerable time and effort that they exercise as roles as a councillor. And there are many sitting around this table now and in the past that have given a considerable amount of their time to their role as councillors. I would like to remind you that we are the last of the elected officials in this state to receive the superannuation guarantee payment that was introduced by former Prime Minister Paul Keating. So maybe after some 33 years, approximately 1,230 councillors across this great state will finally enjoy what all other elected officials have enjoyed during the past 33 years. I note for my fellow councillors that we did not introduce this payment. It was the state government as part of the reform package for local government, and I thank them for that. The state government acknowledges through this reform that councillors make a great contribution to the government of this state, and that superannuation is part of any fair recompense for all individuals in the government process, be they state MPs or state or local government employees, and now councillors. This council has just adopted the March 2025 mid-year budget review, and I commend my fellow councillors in adopting and endorsing this financially prudent, as all of the City of Belmont budgets have been in the past. The mid-year budget review included a modest budget surplus, and the reason why we undertake this financial strategy is to enable us to finance these unexpected situations such as this one. The payment amount that has been recommended not by us as councillors but by the council officers that have written this report is also modest and one that I would support. Being a councillor is often an unappreciated role, and much of the work is done after hours. I certainly didn't become a councillor because of the sitting fees that I received. I became a councillor because I wanted to give back to my local area. I wanted to serve the community that I was raised in and that I love very much, and for which my family has been actively involved for the past 73 years. I was raised here, I went to school here, and I'm proud to say that my 3 children are the 3rd generation here. This payment of superannuation may attract more individuals in the next election, but they shouldn't be put off or discriminated against because they are not paid superannuation. If councillors do not want to take up superannuation, that is their choice. That is a private affair. That is a decision that they will make. They do not need to prevent others sitting around the table from actually taking up that amount. Yes, I acknowledge that there are 3 dates that could be used for the commencement of superannuation from councillors. And I, for one, support the one legislated not by councillors, but by the state government, and that is the 1st of February. As such, I will not support this motion put by my fellow councillor. Thank you very much.
Councillor Ryan, you had your hand up, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Sakula and also the Deputy Mayor have summarised the situation very well, and I support them entirely. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Harris's motion I won't support. I am in favour of 1st of February, and I will say why. The state government initiated a series of reforms for local government. The Western Australian Local Government Associated submitted a submission to legislate payment of superannuation for elected members. I support organisations that promote closing the gender pay gap. I'm a volunteer on a group called BPW that is all about closing the gender pay gap and also fighting for women's rights in impoverished countries, also in Australia as well. So for me, it's quite a close subject to my heart. I'm very passionate about this issue as it has personally affected me, as I had to quit my job in the finance sector to stay at home and care for my children, which is similar to many women in Australia. Therefore, I must express the importance of superannuation for elected members because it will encourage women to nominate for election in local government, encouraging diversity and provide equity. It is documented women are at an unfair financial difficulty. We take time out of the workforce to care for family. We have age discrimination against women in finding employment. It is a factor. Working part-time or casually throughout our lives to care for family, and because of that, we miss out on career growth opportunities. Australian women are at a financial disadvantagement at retirement age, with an average of $92,000 less super than men. Data compiled by the Workplace Gender Equality Agency show the superannuation gap is on average of 46.6%. The gender pay gap is alive and well, sitting at a record high of 19%. Lack of superannuation is one of the reasons why women over the age of 55 are at risk of housing insecurity and homelessness. The number of women over 55 experiencing homelessness increased by 31% in 2021 as compared in 2011 census. We are still underrepresented in Parliament in Australia. The City of Belmont has only 3 female councillors. Introducing this piece of legislation is a positive step forward, encouraging women in the political space. After all, we represent 50% of Australia's population, and the cost of the age pension will decline going forward. Yes, we are not employees. However, it is a job that takes individuals away from seeking other opportunities of employment that does pay super. Federal and state parliamentary members receive super. Local government should not be any different, and I commend the state government for passing this important piece of legislation. It is a step in the right direction to diversity and financial security, especially for women in retirement. As mentioned in the report in this evening's agenda, individual elected members can choose to opt out of receiving super. I urge you to please consider the gender pay gap, the underrepresented women in politics, including local government in Australia, and the financial disadvantages women face in retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishes to speak who's not spoken? No? Then I'll speak briefly. Over the past 20 years, I have sacrificed both superannuation and income to do this job properly. As deputy for 8 years, I often took days off work without pay to support the former mayor. I can only speak for myself, but the personal and financial sacrifices have been significant. Looking at the present, the sheer volume of work and responsibility continues to grow. These past 2 months alone, the workload, the memos, the community demands has been enormous. Yet, despite this, councillors have gone without superannuation, something that most other workers take for granted. The reality is that being a councillor is a 4-year cycle. And like anyone else, councillors deserve financial security. Bringing the superannuation start date back to February instead of waiting until October is simply fair. Councillors have already been doing the work, and delaying their entitlements serves no purpose. The government has recognised this, that we need superannuation, and when I speak with my residents, as I door knock most weekends, not one has suggested we should not receive it. In fact, most are surprised and shocked that we don't get it. They don't believe it. Providing superannuation also acknowledges the evolving demands of the role. The expectations placed on councillors today are far greater than in the past. It's not just the long hours, it's the emotional and mental toll of being in the public eye 7 days a week, facing public scrutiny and navigating social media. This isn't just about financial fairness, it's about recognising the very real challenges of the job and ensuring that those who dedicate themselves to serving their community aren't left behind. So I won't be supporting this. Thank you. Back to the mover.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor. Thank you everyone for your contributions.
Thank you. We'll now go to a vote. Voting is now open. Please use the button on the screen we're voting for the alternative motion put forward by Councillor Harris. I'm missing one vote. Councillor Ryan, please, if you could vote either way. The motion is lost, 7 votes to 1. We now go back to the agenda and we've got the officer recommendation there, moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Davis. Over to you, Councillor Sessions, as the mover.
There we go, it's working. Thank you. Nothing further to add. Just want to thank all of my fellow councillors and yourself for a really good discussion there, I believe.
The seconder, Councillor Davis, which wishes to speak?
Nothing to add. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Anybody else wishes to speak for or against? Councillor Kudzinski, sorry, I didn't see your hand up. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the motion that's presented before us now. Councillors, depending on their statutory roles, such as being council representatives to DAPS, are already paid superannuation. So the legislative change put forward by the state government aligns all levels of government now to other expectations within the community for fair remuneration, which also supports women. So this council currently has an imbalance with the composition of male and female councillors, and it would be great to see if we could have further encouragement of female candidates to consider running for council and not be burdened by the financial complications that may arise from choosing this as an option as compared to board roles, which they may choose to seek instead. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak for or against, just in case I've not missed anybody? No. I'll go back to the mover.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Voting is now open. Please use the voting on your screen. The officer recommendation is carried, 7 votes to 1. Thank you. I have received one request for leave of absence. A request for leave of absence has been received from Councillor Powell for the period 26th of March 2025 to 25th of June 2025. 26th of March to 25th of June 2025. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Sessions, seconded by Councillor Marx. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your screen. Councillor Ryan, carried unanimously. Thank you. Notice of motion, there are none. 14, matters of which the meeting may be closed. I will now close the meeting in accordance with section 5.232 A, C and D of the Local Government Act 1995. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Sessions. Voting is now open. Please use the buttons on your microphone screen. Councillor, right, we got it. Carried unanimously. Would the IT officer please pause the live stream? Would those of the public gallery please depart the chamber? Thank you so much. Officer, please restart the live streaming. I invite the public back into the meeting, which they have. 14.1, Staff Matter. Chief Executive Officer Interim Review for 2024-2025. That Council accepts the Officer recommendation in relation to the item. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sekula. Carried 8 votes to 0. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sekula. Carried 8 votes to 0. I can hear myself back. Ready to progress again? We've done that one. 14.2, East Rockingham Waste to Energy Project. That Council accepts the Officer recommendation in relation to this item. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Sekula. Carried 8 votes to 0. Closure. There being no further business to conduct, I thank all those in attendance and close the meeting at 8:32 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Can I remind all elected members to please return all confidential items back to the box in the foyer of the councillors' entrance here at the Civic Centre. Thank you.